But I was saying to you earlier, I said, how many guys have worked for me or friends that I have that played hockey that it just seems so simple. I'm going to be a cop. I'm going to be a fireman. Yeah, I'm going to be a police officer because I played on a team. They think that playing hockey has something to do with being a police officer or a firefighter, and I laugh. And they go for it the first time or twice, and then they give up because they didn't want to do the work. So how many guys, right? You've seen them come in. I'm going to try to get in the fire department, because a lot of them look at it as a fire department. If they get out of the fire hall, well, then they work 2 days a week. That's how it's worked in this. It works in this city. It's very similar. Yep. 2 days a week, and they get all this time off, and they sit around in a hall. This is what they're perceiving. They sit around a hall in a uniform with their teammates, more or less, and they think they can crack jokes and make a good living and have a nice life. Meanwhile, they don't realize that pretty much they're the first responder to everything tragic and gross, and I don't want my brain to see that they might be going to an accident and see someone's teeth on the freaking dashboard, or all the worst things. And I mean, I have some fireman friends that see the worst of the worst, and it's hard. And you want to be a fireman, you're probably gonna have to be able to fix things and use pumps and all these kind of things. So these guys that go in, I'm going to be a fireman, they're not even good at doing the basic things of tools and stuff. So like, and understanding the water pressure, the heat, you haven't tested that. Yeah. So they don't get the job, and they're like, oh, this sucks. I'm just going to go do something else. Well, you didn't really want it. Yeah. And it's the same with being a police officer. A lot of guys think it's a team. You go out there, you can punch a few guys out here and there, but it's so much more than that. And so people just make a quick decision. And it's like, that's where I'm going with this in hockey, is like a lot of people just think, I hope I get drafted and I hope it works out. But is it actually plan A for you? Or is it a hope, or is it an actual dream? Is it an actual mission in your life to make this thing work? Yeah. And there's a big difference between this being your purpose or your mission in life, your one focus, or hope it works out.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to being like a character thing too. It doesn't matter what you're looking at, if you want to be a hockey player, you want to be a police officer, or whatever. And in sports, it's a little different, because there are those guys that are so good that they can still be a dick and get through just because they're that good. But once you get past and they're not all like this, but once you get past number 1, 2, 3 spot on the teams, everyone after that they can't afford to be a dick, because there's somebody else that is just as good as them who isn't a dick. So you might last for a year or a couple of years, but then you're out because nobody cares. Yep. So that's one of the differences with hockey. But then even like these guys going to police department and stuff, it's so funny because people who have like never thought about doing that before, like you said, just pick up and say, hey, I'm going to go do this today.
I'll be a cop now.
Yeah, I'm going to go do that today.
Now. Yeah, that's what I'll do.
I remember you and I like watching some of these guys do it, and they were like getting interviews and like doing all this stuff. I'm like, these guys don't know how to do anything. I do not want to call this guy to come if I have an emergency. No. That's what I would think, like knowing these guys. And of course, they don't get the job because, of course.
Eventually they get.
So one of my friends that I'm thinking of right now, he went to school and he did nursing. And then he went and worked as a nurse and he didn't like it. But he did like all this travel stuff, had all this volunteer stuff, had all this experience working. And then he was like, I'm going to try to get into the fire department. So then he went and volunteered at a fire hall in Tecumseh here for a while. Yeah. And he plugged away studying. Like I remember one weekend we went to a cottage with just some buddies, like dudes trip, hanging out. This guy was getting up an hour early every morning to do an hour of studying while we were at the cottage, like hanging out.
So he actually wanted to be a fireman.
He's actually doing the work.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, he had all this other stuff lined up. He did volunteering at the fire hall and all this stuff. And then he ended up getting hired with Windsor to be a firefighter now. And that's what he does now. Yeah. And he actually he's like, I actually want to do this. I'm actually going to do the things I need to do. I'm not just going to put a resume together and say that I volunteered at the local hockey school as my volunteering. Like, that's not volunteering, man. Right. You went there to have a good time. It's like, go do something that's actually tough, and that's what the difference is with a lot of those guys. And it's the same thing with hockey. And all these kids that are going through this right now, they're going to see over the next couple of years, it all comes out in the wash, man.
Yeah, 100%.
It all comes out in the wash.
100%.